One of the heavyweight fights coming up. Anthony Joshua next against Kubrat Pulev, the Kissing Bandit. This one's scheduled for June 20th in London. I can't imagine that any of these fights are going to happen because in addition to ending this quarantine, these guys are going to need 8 to 10 weeks to get in shape. No one could or should be in a gym training with other people at this stage of the game, right?
Maybe they're trained to answer that. Maybe they're training privately, though, Ken.
Could be. They're not going to be they shouldn't be getting too much sparring. I mean, it's fine if you're all locked in the same place, but if one person's social distancing and the other guy isn't, it's not much good. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, you can make inquiries.
Yeah.
You can make inquiries and make sure, not that everyone's going to be honest with you, but
yeah,
you do have your sources and you could figure it out. But it could be done. I'm not saying it's going to be done. I'm not saying it's even responsible to do it right now. I'm not saying any of that. But somebody, maybe Dana White will be the first guy, but somebody is going to be the first to put a fight on while this is going on. I mean, everyone's going to wait the responsible amount of time. We're all doing that, and hopefully everybody continues to do that. But somebody, maybe Dana White, he's talked about it, somebody's going to be the first one to break that embargo, so to speak, and do it, and do it in an empty stadium with no people. Obviously, have to, as far as the training, the fighters would have to figure that out, how they do that safely, correctly. But it's going to happen, and who knows when the timeline is. But my money would be on Dana White being the first guy with the UFC to probably, we'll talk about that later, that stuff. But
yeah,
that would probably be the guy that's already thinking from what everybody hears or what we hear and what you hear out there, publicly, that he's thinking along those lines. But as far as Pulev and Joshua, let's say the fight does happen. We'll touch on it real fast. If the fight does happen, Joshua, we all know Joshua. He's a guy that everybody thought he was the best. Most people thought he was the best heavyweight. Not everyone. Some people thought Wilder was. Fury was a dark horse at that point, but a wild card. Some people thought he was. But a lot of people thought Joshua was. And then, of course, he gets knocked out by Ruiz. But then he reinvents himself, which is not an easy trick. It's not an easy trick, Ken. Let me see you reinvent yourself. Can you do that? You can't do that so fast. It's hard. You're genuine. You're real. You can't just reinvent it, Ken. But Joshua remade himself. He was a guy that was in front of you, used his physicality, big guy. He had that body, sculptured body, right? Like an Adonis statue. And he's right there. He'll look to counter. He'll look to lead. He's an Olympic gold medalist. He was bringing the fight to you. He had a little dimension to him. He could counter with the left hook. But for the most part, he could take a little step back to a right hand. But for the most part, he was taking the fight to you. And then he gets knocked out by Ruiz. He reinvents himself. And he becomes, poor man's version of Muhammad Ali. And I'm not knocking him because everybody's a poor man's version to Muhammad Ali. So that's not a knock at all. But, he did a real good job. He did a real good job of reinventing himself, doing what he had to do to take advantage of Ruiz in the second fight, and to play into Ruiz's weaknesses and away from his strengths. I think that's fair. And so you know what you have. Now, how's he going to be in this next fight with this new style? Is it still going to be that new style, or is it be a combination of the old and the new? That's interesting. Pulev is a guy who had a big amateur career, but he's not a spring chicken. I believe he's 38 years old, very close to that number 40. When 40 comes, things start to change a little bit. And he's not, Ken don't like that. Ken does not like that. I just realized.
He's 38. He's a spring chicken.
He's a spring chicken. I'm sorry, Ken. You're right. You're 100% right. So you got Pulev, who's been a little bit of a disappointment. He was a good amateur, but he wasn't quite what the people who signed him up. He's from Bulgaria. The people that had him, the promoters, everybody, he wasn't quite what they thought he would be. He got knocked out. He's got one loss. He got knocked out by Klitschko. Hey, guys get knocked out by Klitschko. I think that was back in 2016. If you got all the papers, I don't have papers for that.
That was 2014.
2014. So he got knocked out. So we're talking about 6 years ago. Obviously, he's won all his fights since, but obviously not quite at that level.
He's 28. He's 28-1, but he's only got 14 knockouts. And for a heavyweight, you don't see that very often, where a guy's only knocking out.
But to
of that
fairness,
caliber.
I'll put in the bad dimensions, but I'll put in the good ones too. I think people know that. He's beaten some decent guys. I think he beat Chisora. I think he beat, I'm trying to remember, he's beaten a couple decent guys. He lost to Klitschko. I think he beat Chisora.
He beat Chisora. He beat Huey Fury, Sam Peter, Mo Harris. George
Peter was
Arias.
a one-trick pony. He could punch, but he was one-dimensional, and he wasn't disciplined, and he didn't last long. But he could punch. He's beaten some decent guys, and he got knocked out by Klitschko. But he has been a disappointment for what people thought when they signed him up coming out of the amateurs. They thought they had a golden trinket. They thought they had, a guy who could win a heavyweight title. And maybe they still do. But now it doesn't look as good as it did when they thought what they thought they were getting. He hasn't developed into that. And now he, of course, at 38 gets his chance to fight Joshua. When it does happen, it'll be in London. It'll be almost impossible to win a decision there. I would like Joshua in that fight, obviously. Pulev reminds me, I'm going to give Rob some work to do because he looked like he was sitting around too much today. There was a Cuban that came out of the Olympics, Ken, years ago. I think his name was Gonzalez. I can't remember. But he came out of the Olympics. He was the man. He was the guy. He had beaten Lennox Lewis and Riddick Bowe in the amateurs. I mean, this was the guy. And people signed him up and thought he was going to be the next heavyweight champ. No doubt about it.
Was that Jorge Luis Gonzalez?
Yes, there it is. And he never came close to that. He never came close to that. I think he got knocked out by Bowe finally. And he never came close to the potential that he had shown in the amateurs. Now, why? Too many amateur fights? Maybe. He got old? Maybe. Transition from amateurs to pros, going more rounds? Maybe. Lack of discipline coming from a very deprived, harsh regime, country in Cuba, and then coming over here and having people give you money and having the freedoms that you never had before. Maybe you were performing at that level, which you had a level of doing. You had the ability to do it, but maybe you were doing it because there was forced discipline on you. Now you don't have forced discipline. Now you're on your own. You're in America. And maybe hitting the shores was his championship. Maybe that did satisfy him. I don't know. All I know is that he didn't pan out to be what everyone thought he was going to be. And it reminds me a little bit of Pulev, where they thought he was going to be this, they had high expectations coming out of the amateurs. Maybe they put him with Klitschko too soon. I don't know. He's going to get his chance now to redeem himself. But he's more on a pathway of looking like he's going to wind up being Jorge Luis Gonzalez than on a pathway that he's going to wind up being Pulev, heavyweight champ.
Yeah, I would agree. I agree with you. I don't want to spend too much time on that because I think you're right. I think that one on paper, Joshua should win that one. But
you never know.
Yeah, you never know. That's fair.